Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and you're probably wondering what these black flowers are that I have sitting out here. So today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I saw a technique, and I've seen this in a couple different places, but I believe the first person that I saw demonstrate this is Catherine Rains on her channel. I'm sure some of you are probably aware of her work. She has a lot of great information on her channel, so if you haven't had a chance to check her out, I'm going to put a link in the description, and please go ahead and check her channel out. Really great stuff. So what we're going to do today is make some transparent collage papers to use. Well, first I'm going to demonstrate a couple of different ways that I've found work best to make them. And then I'm going to actually make some with my flowers. If you've been with me for a while, you know that I like to do prints of these flowers on the jelly plate here and use them in my collages. So that's what I'm going to try to do today is use the flowers to print on the transparent collage papers, and then at some point we're going to use those in a mixed media piece. So that's what we're going to be printing when we get to that part. First of all, what we're going to do is actually make the papers. I've tested out several different things, and these are the three that I've found work best. The plain old jelly plate works pretty well. I would say number 2 is this freezer paper. It works really well. And honestly, my number 1 choice for this is just a Ziploc freezer bag, and I've been making it right on here. What I wanted to do was try to find materials that you would all already have on hand. I really hate when you have to go and buy specialty things. You see somebody do something really cool and you're like, oh, I have to go get that. But it's pretty cool when you don't actually have to do that, and you can just go to your kitchen or another room and find something there. So these are the 3 that I've found work best. I also used parchment paper, which does work pretty well. You can pull it up off of there pretty easily. And what I found doesn't work, and I don't know why, because it theoretically should, is I had sheets of acetate that I used, and I could not pull the papers up off of there. I think that might have been user error, and I'll explain that when we get started here. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rolling with this, and I hope you will join me. Okay, so what I have here is just a little tub that I'm going to be mixing some things in. What I'm using for this is my matte medium, and I have the liquid one here. You don't necessarily have to use the liquid one because we're going to be adding some water anyway. If you just have the regular kind that comes in the little jar there, this is actually gloss. You can use that as well. It doesn't really matter. But I'm going to just mix a little bit of this, and I don't have exact measurements because I'm not an exact measurement kind of person. It's kind of how I cook too. I'm going to eyeball it, and what I'm going to, here, I'll just walk you through it here. I'm going to add some of this medium to my container here. About how much that is, I don't know, teaspoon or so. And I'm just adding a little bit of water to water this down. I don't want it to be, it's not 50-50. It's definitely more to the side of the medium. I don't know, probably like 2/3, 1/3 is what I have in there. I'm actually going to put a little bit more water in there. Yeah, 2/3, 1/3 is going to be my guesstimate as to what I've got going on there. And I have one of these sponge brushes that I've been using. I've also done it just with a regular paintbrush, and that works just fine as well. So whatever you have on hand. The process is extremely simple. I have my Ziploc setting out. I'm going to use this to just spread some of my mixture right on there. You can see I've used this one before, and there's a little piece of stuck on there, but that's not going to hurt anything. Just get a nice coat there. It does not have to be perfect. This is a very forgiving process. I've cut sheets of tissue paper, and this is just regular old tissue paper. This is not the wet strength or anything. I wanted to try to make sure that I am doing this again with products that everybody probably has pretty easy access to, and you don't have to go and spend a fortune on anything. So we're just laying a coat down, setting the tissue paper down, and brushing this right over the top again. This step is really important. You can use the edge of your sponge to push this up, and that's just fine. I've found a little better to use just like a plastic card, an old gift card or something. And what you're doing is just giving the edges here a start for when you want to peel it up. Because if they are glued flat down, it's going to be really difficult to lift this up without tearing it. So I'm just going around all of the sides here and just kind of starting to get that rolled up. I think you can see that there. the whole way around. And if you miss a spot, it's not going to matter if it's not entirely done, but you definitely want to try to get most of it pushed up there. And that is it. I'm going to show you that. We're going to set this aside to dry. The ones that I did earlier took about 2 hours to dry. It's going to depend on how dry it is where you are. My house is extremely dry this time of year, so it doesn't take very long. If you are impatient like me, you can also use a hairdryer to speed it up. I did that on some of them and it works just fine too. But otherwise, let it sit a couple of hours or overnight if you have that kind of time to do it with. But then you are good to go. So this is the Ziploc one. And this is my freezer paper here, shiny side out. And I'm going to just do the same exact process. Doesn't matter if it beads up a little bit because you're putting 2 coats on front and back, so everything is going to get covered. You can have fun with this and wrinkle them up if you want on purpose. I kind of like that look. It doesn't really matter. Just whatever your purposes are going to be, what kind of collage you might be making with the finished product there. You can leave them smooth if you want. Be delicate with this because it is tissue paper and it is now wet tissue paper. So you know that that's very delicate. You could probably use the wet strength. I didn't try it. I can't see why that wouldn't work, but I can't speak for it 100% because I haven't tried it. But that's all you're doing is making sure everything gets covered. And I'm going to go in again with my card here and just push up my edges. I mean, this couldn't be any easier. And there are other things that you can use, such as glue works depending on what your purposes are going to be. Glue will yellow over time, Mod Podge as well. But I use the matte medium because I have it and it is going to yellow much less than anything else. But that is entirely it. So that is the one that I've done on the freezer paper. Get that out of the way. And the last one I'm going to do is on my little jelly plate. Because I was thinking, if it works on everything else, why wouldn't it work on the gel plate? And we all love our gel plates, and most of us have them, or at least are interested in them. So I'm going to just spread that down there. And yeah, it is definitely beating up a little bit on there. But again, it doesn't matter because I am spreading it on both sides, and that's going to saturate completely through. Just going to go in again with my card. And that's it. So what I'm going to do after these dry is I'm going to try printing on the plate with them, on my jelly plate. But I'm also going to try to print some tissue paper first and then make those transparent as well. So we'll see which works better. And my goal for this is going to be to use it in an upcoming project. But as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm looking across my desk and I see some of these Distress Oxide sprays. And I think I'm going to spray some on here just to see what happens while this is wet. It should be pretty cool. Or maybe I won't like it. Hard to say, but won't know until I try. I like the colors very much. I love this set. This has all of this is Cracked Pistachio, this is Mermaid Lagoon, and this one is Peacock Feathers. I have a set of brown ones too, which are pretty cool, but these are pretty neat. But yeah, anyway, so I'm going to let this round dry, and then we'll come back once they're dry, peel them up, take a look at them, and see about doing some printing on them. Actually, while I still have some of this glue left here, rather than waste it, I think I'm going to try, I don't think this is going to work, but I have a page from Miss Alette that I use in some of my work. I'm gonna just try it and see what happens with this kind of paper. Maybe nothing, which is what I'm kind of thinking, but I've got the glue left here, so why don't we give it a try and just see. All I'm wasting is the minute or two that it's going to take for me to get this down here, and it's worth it to me just to know, because I think that would look pretty cool if we could get it to go a little bit transparent at least. How do I want to do this? Now this paper is thicker, obviously, so definitely want to make sure you get that good and covered. I'll mix some more if I need to, but I don't know if I will need to or not. Just want to make sure it's really saturated. I feel like there's probably enough on there. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with this. I kind of think probably not a lot, but you can see the ink from the other side coming through, like the music notes that are on there. So maybe a little bit of something will happen. We'll just check it out and see what we can get. I'm going to do the same procedure there because it is a little bit thicker, but I don't want to run the risk of not being able to lift it up. So even if I can just get a good corner started over there. Oops. And of course, this doesn't work exactly like the tissue paper does because it's much thicker, but all right. This is definitely an experiment. We will see what happens. I think it might end up being cool. That's what it looks like on the other side. And we'll check back. Okay, so in the meantime, while we're waiting for those to dry, what I'm going to do here is I've got my 8x10 jelly plate there, and it is nice and clean. I just freshly cleaned this off with my baby oil to recondition it because it was kind of a mess from when I did the gold leaf printing in my last video. But what I'm going to do is get a couple of sheets of tissue paper here printed with these flowers on them. And I forgot to go ahead and get a couple pieces of this cut. So give me just 1 second and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got some pieces of tissue cut here. What I'm going to do is just roll out some of my Mars Black acrylic paint here from Liquitex. And I'm just doing a small area at a time, and I'll show you why here in 1 second. Let's just get that good and saturated. I'm going to set my flower down here, right in the middle of that. And I have, these are just book pages. I'm just using, actually this is a little bit too small. I'm going to just get a sheet of paper here as my pickup sheet. I'm going to go right over the top of the stem of that flower, push that through so that I can get a really good print of this flower here. And I'm pressing down, I'm trying to pick up all of that other paint around the edges while at the same time getting a good imprint of the flower down there. And anything that we don't want on there, we can clean off. This flower in particular makes the prettiest prints. And I'm going to just keep using that same piece of paper, but there are obviously messy parts on there that I don't really want. So I'm going to just take a little bit of water on my paper towel. You could use a piece of tape, a piece of painter's tape to stick on there and it'll come off too. But this cleans up anything that you don't want to print. These don't need to be completely perfect, but as long as you're careful, you can go in there and pick up just about all of what you might want to get rid of. Okay, and that is that one. And I'm going to go up here and do the same thing with this flower. I tend, when I'm doing these flowers, to leave a little more paint on the plate than I normally would for a regular jelly print. I think it just picks up a little bit better, but that's just my opinion. Just play around with it and see what you like. And I'm just gonna go in here again. You can use the same hole if you want, or you can just poke a new one because it's really fiddly. I was just going in on the opposite side of the paper in case any of this was still a little bit wet. I didn't want to smear it onto where I didn't want it. That one's basically dry down there by now, but still trying to kind of be cautious of how much paper lays on there. All right, came out okay. Give this a little cleanup. That bottom petal didn't really print, but that's all right. I get that cleaned off. And what I'm going to do is wait until this dries, which should only be like another minute or two, and then pick up these flowers onto some tissue paper with my matte medium here. And once we do that, then they'll be ready to try to make transparent. So I'll be back with you as soon as this is dry. Okay, that has dried up for me. So now I am going to get a clean brayer. Sorry, I walked away there for a second. I'm going to get a clean brayer because that other one's still a little bit wet. And I am going to, one at a time, pick up these prints. Just going to add a little bit of my medium there. And if you have not done this technique, it's really cool. The medium works exactly like acrylic paint. So when you're picking up off of your plate, you can get a print that doesn't have any colored background to it. It'll just be a clear background, which is perfect for what we want to do here. Okay. Now, you can be much more cautious and not get any of the little lines in there, the wrinkles, but I'm not worried about it for this. So we're just going to roll with what I have. Although I will show you a way to kind of mitigate some of those wrinkles if that is a problem that you don't really like. Let me try to get a little bit more of that off of there for this one. So if you want to try to avoid the wrinkles, now this paper is a little wrinkled to begin with. I just pull it really tight at the top and start it up there and then kind of stretch it as I'm pulling down. I mean, there's no magic to it really. It's just physics. And I mean, it worked a little bit better, but again, I'm never super concerned about those wrinkles because I like the way that they look. But if you wanted to start with a very unwrinkled piece, that would be a really good way to go too. So I'm going to let these dry for a minute and I'll be right back to pull them. Okay, I let these dry. I actually cheated and used a hair dryer on cool setting. You don't want to, if you do use one with your plate, which you definitely can, and I do all the time, just make sure you're not using really hot and you're not focusing it on one area too long because you can damage your plate. But I've been very careful and have had pretty good luck with that. So I'm going to just lift up my print here now. And you can see I got a pretty nice print other than those two petals that didn't print when I pulled it up. And let's take a look at this one. I had a lot of wrinkles in this one, and that's what you're seeing still on the plate there. All right, so these worked out really well, which I knew they would because I do this technique all the time. But what I'm going to do now is get another sheet of plastic, and we're going to put medium on these and try to make them transparent. So I will be right back. Okay, I grabbed another bag. I reuse a lot of my plastic bags, incidentally, so this is a great use if you are the same. Sometimes I'll use them, and I don't necessarily want to put food in them again, but they're still like not garbagey, so this is perfect. Also, when you're using the, for this, I've been making sure that this side is actually not touching the work. I don't know if it will make a difference, but it could possibly stick to that. So just to be on the safe side, I have not been doing that. So I went and cut my bag in half so that I could get 2 halves out of it. And then, I mean, you can just keep reusing these over and over again for this process if you decide to make more. And I'm going to I'm going to do one with the flower side down because the down side gets really shiny. And I'm going to do the next one with the flower side up just to show you the difference. And again, same process as before. Lay down a layer, put down your tissue, and put another layer on. Just don't forget to get your corners and edges started for yourself. Oh, whoops. I think just for fun, I might spray some of this on here just to see what happens. Because why not? I mean, it can't possibly be bad. Those are beautiful colors, right? And then let's get the other one going. And this one I'm going to put the painted side up, because I had it painted side down on the last one. This little bit of color here is just excess paint that was still on my my gel plate that I must not have cleaned off as well as I thought I did, but that's all right. Get this guy good and covered. Get the edges pushed up, and then I'm going to let everything dry overnight just because that's the time slot that I have available today. And then when I come back tomorrow morning, I'm not going to peel anything off until I am back with you guys, and we will see what we've got. I'm pretty sure that the results are going to be really cool. I'm excited. I've tried this before, obviously, enough to know that it works, but I have not tried it with these Distress oxides, and you could probably use paint as well, too, if you don't have these. So I'm going to let these dry, and I will be back with you in the morning. Okay, we are back. This is actually 2 days later because Monday just entirely got away from me. I'm sure you can understand. So today we're going to peel off these transparent papers that we made and see what we've got. This first one is just the tissue paper right on the plastic bag, and I am just carefully removing this, and you can see why rolling up these edges makes a huge difference. But once it gets started, it just peels right off. And there's a little bit of the medium still stuck on there, but I can cut that off, or actually even just pull it off just like that. This is the side that was down against the bag. It's very shiny, and this is the other side. So that's kind of nice because it gives you an option of what you might want to do. And I'm going to just hold something up underneath it here. I have a little date book here with a design on it from 2022. And so you can see that this is nice and fairly transparent. I like the way that turned out. So that was on the plastic wrap, or I'm sorry, the plastic bag. This is the freezer paper here. Now you would not want to use wax paper for this because the wax will lift and there's going to be that waxy residue on there. Again, the downside is very shiny and a little more matte on this side, but you can easily see how transparent this is. Okay. Here, let's do the one on the jelly plate that I put the Distress inks on there. Really pretty colors. I'm going to show you. I mean, it's going to peel up just like peeling a print off of the plate because it is just the acrylic matte medium on there. So, oops, I tore that one a little bit. Just be delicate with it because, again, it is just tissue paper. The medium does give it a little extra strength to it, but still don't want to He-Man it off there because then you will end up with a torn up mess. So I'm just showing you some different surfaces so you have options. I mean, most likely you've got one of these things in your house. Here is up and show you there. It's very pretty. Now, this one here, this ink was fairly opaque, I noticed when I was putting it on, so you're not going to get the same kind of transparency, although it is a cool way to make a pretty paper. I will definitely use this for something, but it's not quite as transparent as the other two. All right, let's go with this guy, and it worked about as well as I thought it would, which is like not at all. But one thing it did do is make it very shiny on that side, so it's cool looking, and I will probably use it for something, but not transparent in the least. But that is okay. That's why we do experiments, to find these things out. Let me fold that and get it out of the way. And these last two, if you'll remember, these are the ones that I printed the flowers on and then tried to make them transparent after the fact, which, you know, definitely should work. So this was, here, let me just peel it off first before I try to guess. I think this was the painted side up. And you can see it's very, very transparent. I'll get my little book there so you can see the pattern through it. Very transparent. Very shiny on the side that was facing the plastic. So, I mean, these are pretty cool. And then this was the painted side down. And I had the inks on there. It's really, really pretty. Again, the inks did tamp down the transparency a little bit, but I mean, look at that. That's really cool. If you used a little bit of transparent acrylics on these, I mean, I think that would just be so pretty. So that's what we've got from those experiments. Now what I'm going to do is use those papers and try to pull prints directly onto the transparent papers that we made. So let me get my little jelly plate here. And I'm going to just do black ink to keep it simple. Let me get one of my papers. Let's see. Here's the one that we did on the Ziploc bag. And I'm going to do this in the same way that I was doing the prints the other day. Oops. Shuffling papers around here. So I'm going to just do these one at a time. Get my paint open. Okay. Spread some paint out on my plate here. Leaving it just a hair thicker than I normally would. And let's get, I love this prints that this flower makes, so we're going to do that one. And I'm just using this same exact paper, I'm doing it the same exact way. What I am going to try to do, maybe, is to not pull it with any medium, although I could, because it's going to depend on how wet the paint is when I lift this up. I want to try to get all of this extra paint. See, that's the problem. That's not going to come up as well as I want it to. So what we're going to do is just do it the way that I was doing it before. I was hoping to just have this wet enough to pull it, which, you know what, it probably is. Most of it is, but some of it's not going to print because it's starting to dry. So I will just let this completely dry and pull it with medium. I would probably get a fairly decent print this way, but I would rather just get a really nice one. I'm going to clean up this paint around the sides. Okay, now that this is completely dry here, I'm going to take some of my matte medium. And I'm going to get a clean, dry brayer. And again, I'm just using the liquid one because I have it handy. The one in the tub works perfectly. That's what I actually usually use. So I think I'm going to try matte side down for this first one. We'll see what happens here. I don't know what's going to happen. If this doesn't work, as we've seen on these experiments, you can certainly print it first, and then make it transparent. I'm going to go ahead and cut out here for a second and let this dry, and then I will be right back. Okay, so one thing I want to mention is because the matte medium is a plasticizer, it's going to change the dry time for these. So typically when I'm pulling a gel print, I will lay down my pickup layer and let it sit for a couple of minutes. That's really all it takes to dry. Because this has got a plastic coating on it, it's going to take a little bit longer. So what I did, I laid this down, pressed it out like I normally would. Then I laid something heavy on top of it and I let it sit for a couple of hours. That was only because I started doing other things. I don't know what the exact time is. I would start checking it after every half hour. Probably only takes an hour or so, but let's see what happened. This has been, like I said, at maybe 3 hours now. All right. So this is the print printed on the paper that we already made transparent. This is the print made on that we printed and then made the print transparent, and there is basically absolutely no discernible difference. So for my money, I would probably print the paper first and then make it transparent, just for the simple fact that once you do plasticize the paper, it's going to take it longer to dry. If that doesn't bother you, you can do it either way, but the results are basically exactly the same. So I don't know. I think that it kind of just makes more sense to do it in that order. So the only other thing that I want to try here is printing it on the plastic side. So because we did all of the printing on the matte side. So I'm going to do that right now. I will be right back with you. Okay, so I've got my sheet that we did before. This is the plasticky side, as you can see, because it's nice and shiny. We're going to just change it up. Instead of doing the flowers, I'm going to print some text. This is just Asemic writing. I'm going to do it in red for a change here. And instead of, what I'm going to do is just put a little bit of this red down to the side here. And I'm going to roll it onto the stamp so that we're stamping the lettering and not the background, if you know what I mean. So let me just roll some of this out here. And we're just going to go right along the stamp. There we go. That is down there. And I'm going to give that a second to dry. And then we'll go in with the medium. And again, I will let that sit for probably about an hour. And just, we'll see what we've got going on. I have one of these stamps here too, so I got a little bit of ink left. Just to get a little more pattern on there. Make it look interesting. All right, I'm gonna let that dry and I will be right back with you. Okay, got that all dried off. I'll put a little bit of my medium down. Going in with a different brayer. Try to cover all of this. And shiny side down. I'm actually gonna, just to really get a good press down there, and obviously the paper isn't as large as the entire plate, so I'm gonna let this dry and we will see what we have. Okay, I went ahead and waited till this dried, and I am going to pull this up and see what we have. Be very, very careful because it really wants to stick. But it's definitely, oh, it's really cool. It is really cool. There are just so many possibilities that you could do with this. And one thing that I'm thinking of off the top of my head is writing, because you know that you could handwrite something. I always talk about my Posca pens, which I don't have handy, or I'd show them to you right now. They're the acrylic paint markers. Yes, I do have them handy. They're right here. So these are acrylic paint markers. These work really, really well on a jelly plate. But as you know, I'm sure anything that you write on there is going to print in reverse. So with this method, though, that would alleviate that. Because as you can see, this prints the way that you see it because you're pulling it in reverse. So writing would be the opposite of that if you hand wrote directly on here. But yeah, that looks really cool. And there are all sorts of different things that we could do, like I was saying. I can't wait to make a project with this. Specifically with the flowers, which I'll show you. I'm going to pull everything back out that we made. Here's the one that I did with the distress inks. But yeah, I have lots of ideas for these flowers. These are one of my favorite things to print. And so once I learned about this technique here, I was really excited because my mind is going crazy with all of these creative thoughts and different projects that we can do, and I will be doing some coming up in the future. So I really hope that you enjoyed this technique as much as I did, and give it a try. Let me know in the comments if you gave this a try, if you've done it before, if you have any tips or secrets you would like to share with the rest of us. I'm sure everyone would be happy to learn those. I know I would. I am always interested in learning something new. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining me with this today. And if you liked my video, please give me a thumbs up. It really helps things out for me. And go ahead and subscribe if you're interested in seeing more work from me. I put out a new video every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And I just thank you all so much. Have a great day.